It's not just one big earthquake we need to worry about on the west coast of Canada, it's two. For years, the big one for BC has been the Cascadia Subduction Zone. You know, that underwater volcano thing that stretches from Northern California to Vancouver Island. It's been slowly building up stress, kind of like a giant spring, and every few hundred years or so, it unleashes a massive earthquake. We're talking about an earthquake so big it can shake the entire west coast. But now geologists are saying there's another even bigger one to worry about. A hidden megathrust along the Queen Charlotte Fault off the coast of Haida Gwaii is in the process of becoming a subduction zone. And that means there's a second big one hiding under our feet. The research was published this week in the journal Nature. And according to one of the authors, we could see a magnitude 9 earthquake in the next 50 years. So what does this mean for us? Well, it means we need to be prepared for two big earthquakes, not just one, and that's why.
This is the most powerful type of earthquake on the planet. And no, it's not the one that just hit Turkey. It's called a megathrust earthquake, and here's why. These earthquakes happen at the edge of tectonic plates where two of Earth's massive slabs of rock are colliding. One plate is diving under the other, and the friction between them can be thousands of kilometers long. All that rubbing creates a lot of heat and pressure, and when it's released, it causes an earthquake. And we are talking about earthquakes that are hundreds of times more powerful than the one that hit Turkey. Since 1900, there have only been a handful of these mega earthquakes, all of them over a magnitude 9.0. The largest one ever recorded was a 9.5, which is why it's called the Great Lisbon Earthquake. It happened in 1755 and it devastated the city. But that's not even the worst part. These mega earthquakes often cause tsunamis that can travel across entire ocean basins and hit coastlines thousands of kilometers away. That's why it's important to understand the power of these earthquakes. They are a force of nature that we cannot control, but we can learn to predict and prepare for them.
The big one we've been waiting for. Now, let's talk about the Cascadia Subduction Zone, or CSZ. It's a fault line that runs from mid-Vancouver Island down to Northern California. Here, the Juan de Fuca tectonic plate is sliding beneath the North American plate, and it's not a smooth ride. Scientists know that this fault experiences magnitude 9 earthquakes every 200 to 800 years. The last one happened 325 years ago on January 26, 1700. That puts us well within the overdue range. But how do scientists know this? Well, they used a technique called dendrochronology, which studies tree rings. They found ghost trees in coastal marshes that died suddenly, pointing to an earthquake in the late 1600s or early 1700s. But they needed more data, and that's when they turned to indigenous oral histories. First Nations communities from Northern California to Vancouver Island have stories of a great shaking and a huge wave that washed people away. One story even said that the ocean water rose so high that it turned Cape Flattery into an island. By piecing together these narratives, geologists were able to pinpoint the time and date of the earthquake. It's now considered one of the most powerful earthquakes in history.
The last piece of this global puzzle came from Japan. You see, Japanese written history includes records of orphan tsunamis, waves that strike without an earthquake warning. In the 1990s, a geologist named Kenji Satake connected the dots, finding records of an orphan tsunami in January 1700 that affected 6 towns along Honshu's coast. Samurai reports described a rising sea without warning on a winter night. By knowing the exact time of arrival and the wave's angle, scientists could back-calculate its origin to the Cascadia Subduction Zone. And that is when they realized that a magnitude 9 or greater earthquake had occurred off the coast of North America at around 9 p.m. local time on January 26, 1700. But there's more. The discovery of the Haida Gwaii thrust offshore, captured using a 15-kilometer-long streamer with thousands of underwater microphones, is revealing the first detailed images of this system. This megathrust system has the potential to unleash powerful megathrust earthquakes and tsunamis. And because it's still forming, It's actually migrating laterally as the Pacific and North American plates collide. Understanding how subduction zones work here is crucial for hazard analysis and preparedness for future earthquakes and tsunamis.
You might think that the biggest earthquakes we need to worry about in British Columbia are those big coastal megathrust events. And you'd be right, but there are other earthquakes that could also pose a significant risk. In fact, we generally talk about 3 types of earthquakes that could happen here. First, the shallow crustal earthquakes. These happen within the North American plate itself and can be quite damaging because they re-often close to populated areas. The 1946 earthquake near Courtenay, Vancouver Island, was this type? And so was the modeled magnitude 7-point to Georgia Strait planning scenario earthquake. Then there are the deep intra-slab earthquakes. These happen within the subducting oceanic plate as it dives deep into the mantle. The 2001 magnitude 6.8 Nisqually earthquake near Olympia, Washington was this type. And we know that these can happen at depths of 45 to 70 kilometers beneath the Strait of Georgia and Puget Sound. Finally, there are the large subduction zone earthquakes, the ones we've been talking about, which occur at the interface between the Juan de Fuca plate and the North American plate. These are the really big ones, like the 1700 M9 Cascadia earthquake. So while the megathrust events are the ones that we really need to be prepared for, it's important to remember that other types of earthquakes can also happen here.
Even if the big one is only a magnitude 7, like this one, it's gonna rock. Because as any geologist will tell you, shaking is strongest closest to the source. So a magnitude 7.0 or 7.3 earthquake directly beneath Greater Vancouver or Greater Victoria has the potential for even more concentrated and significant impacts due to the high population density, economic significance, and critical infrastructure interdependencies in these urban areas. In fact, a recent study found that the anticipated impacts from a major earthquake in BC would be worse than expected, particularly in the Fraser River Valley, where the shaking would be enough to topple over mobile homes and buildings, triggering landslides and causing widespread liquefaction of the soil. Widespread liquefaction could undermine roadways and buildings, turning solid ground into a slurry. Oh, and don't forget the tsunamis. A megathrust earthquake would generate a huge tsunami, potentially with wave heights of less than 1 meter near Vancouver, but far greater along the outer coast. Localized tsunamis can also be triggered by undersea landslides, even from smaller, shallow earthquakes. And when you think the ground has stopped moving, the aftershocks begin. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of aftershocks could continue for months. Some could be as large as magnitude 6.0 or 6.3. Just when you think it's safe to go outside, the earth could rumble again.
Our built environment in places like Vancouver is extremely vulnerable to earthquakes. A recent study actually modeled what would happen if there was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake on the Georgia Strait, and the results are pretty scary. The study predicts nearly 6,100 buildings would be heavily damaged or completely collapsed, up to 1,350 severe injuries and fatalities. And over 1/3 of the people who live and work in Vancouver would be displaced for more than 3 months. And the direct financial losses would exceed $17 billion. Older buildings, particularly ones made of unreinforced masonry or unreinforced concrete, are most at risk of damage or collapse. But even modern buildings constructed on soft soils like fill or reclaimed marshlands are especially hazardous. The problem is many of these buildings were built before we had modern seismic codes. And even if they were built to code, a recent study suggests that fire following an earthquake could cause up to 10 times more damage than the shaking itself. And when it comes to fires following an earthquake, the timing and the weather conditions are going to be critical. But even then, our fire departments would be completely overwhelmed. And as we saw in 1906, fires can destroy more buildings than the earthquake itself. It's a harsh truth that natural disasters like this disproportionately impact the most vulnerable in our society. Renters, low-income individuals, seniors, visible minorities, and indigenous peoples are often women, children, and people with disabilities. They face greater risk, and they face additional challenges in preparing for, responding to, and recovering from these disasters.
We've talked about the grim realities, but as a geologist and an earth science enthusiast, I'm also about solutions and resilience. And the good news is that Canada is actively working on preparedness and mitigation, recognizing that it's not a matter of if, but when. One major leap forward is Canada's National Earthquake Early Warning System, which is currently being launched in British Columbia. This system can give residents and critical infrastructure operators precious seconds, from a few to tens of seconds, of warning before destructive seismic waves arrive. British Columbia has its Provincial Earthquake Immediate Response Strategy, PEERS, which involves provincial ministries, federal agencies, First Nations, and NGOs. This strategy details how to manage everything from humanitarian assistance to critical infrastructure repair. The City of Vancouver is also taking steps to enhance preparedness with its Resilient Vancouver strategy, which includes a multi-year program to assess and reduce seismic risk in existing buildings. Indigenous oral histories have long informed community planning by highlighting the wisdom of moving settlements inland away from vulnerable coastlines. Modern planning incorporates this understanding into updated building codes, tsunami evacuation plans, and, in some areas, the construction of tsunami escape towers for rapid vertical evacuation.
For us, the public and earth science enthusiasts, individual preparedness remains paramount. That means having a family emergency plan, preparing go bags with food, water, and other essential supplies, enough for at least 2 weeks without external support, and knowing where your utilities shut-offs are. Practicing drop, cover, and hold on during shakeout drills helps build the muscle memory needed to react effectively when the unexpected strikes. In the long term, reducing seismic risk in existing buildings is a massive undertaking, but it's one that we can take on collectively. Cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles have implemented 25 to 30-year strategies, and Seattle has begun cataloging at-risk buildings. Vancouver is following suit, engaging stakeholders like housing associations, tenant groups, and engineering bodies to develop a comprehensive seismic risk reduction strategy for private buildings. The goal is to incrementally reduce risk while also balancing the very practical concerns of displacement and affordability. Every small, strategic action that we take today makes our communities more resilient tomorrow.
The message is clear. A major earthquake is not a question of if, but when. It's a geological certainty that will challenge our infrastructure, our emergency response, and our collective resilience. But with knowledge comes power. We, as geologists, earth science students, structural geologists, tectonic specialists, or prospectors and enthusiasts, we all have a vital role to play in understanding these forces, communicating the risks, and contributing to the innovative solutions that will protect lives and accelerate recovery. It's a daunting prospect, but it is survivable. By embracing preparedness, supporting scientific research, and advocating for resilient communities, we can face the big one not with paralyzing fear, but with informed action. Let's continue to explore, learn, and prepare. Ensure that when the ground finally shakes, Canada stands ready to rebuild, stronger and more united than ever. After all, geology may be slow, but it's never boring, and its consequences are always monumental. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, and tell your friends and colleagues about it. Until next time, keep exploring.
My name is Ricardo Valls, and I am inviting all geology enthusiasts to discover a treasure trove of geological knowledge at my Valls Geoconsultant YouTube channel. As a professional geologist with over 41 years of international experience in the mining industry, I offer a wealth of high-quality, informative videos that bring the fascinating world of geology to life. From beginner-friendly explanations to in-depth explorations of complex concepts, I provide content for geologists of all levels. I cover a wide range of topics, including rock formations, plate tectonics, mineralogy, and even the application of artificial intelligence in geology. My clear, concise presentations make even the most challenging geological concepts accessible and enjoyable. Whether you're a student, professional geologist, or simply curious about Earth's processes, my channel is an invaluable resource. Don't miss this opportunity to enhance your geological understanding. Visit my Valls Geoconsultant channel today and subscribe to stay updated with my latest videos. Join our community of like-minded earth science enthusiasts. Your journey into the depths of geological exploration starts here.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell.